Thank you all so much for listening. This show has grown so much over the last year and a half. It keeps doubling in size. Now episodes are downloaded in over 60 countries around the world. Absolutely amazing. And one of the best ways that you guys can help this show is to write reviews. And I know it's a pain, right? But if you go on to Apple Podcasts, Library, Six Ranch Podcasts, you scroll down to the bottom, then you can rate the show and you can add a review. And for the next month, I'm going to look at all the new reviews that go in there, and I'm going to randomly pick one of you guys, and I'm going to send you a Sig Sauer Kilo 2400 ABS rangefinder. You can look it up. It's the expensive rangefinder. It's one of the best rangefinders out there, and it's what I use in competitions. It has a weather unit in it. It'll give you a good ballistic hold for anything that you can range, and you can range stuff farther than you can shoot, I promise. Okay, excellent rangefinder, and I want to give one away to one of you who reviews the show in the next month. Starting now, go.
Anna Voracek and I have had tremendous luck. We shot her caribou at less than 3 yards.
Wow.
I was right over her shoulder. And when she drew her bow, I fell back into the moss because we were looking at his eyelashes and she had nowhere to draw. And I saw it, read it, fell back. So, and she's an accomplished hunter. Like, she's notably one of the most accomplished female bow hunters in the world. And I think a lot of how hunting with her has taught me communication as a team. She would trust me on the species that I've guided with, and I would trust her knowing her equipment. And I think a lot of those, you can agree with it. A lot of those super successful hunters that do it for the love of it and because it's something that they just are passionate about, they also know that it's camaraderie in the truest form.
Yep.
You have to be able to communicate with your hunting partner.
These are stories of outdoor adventure and expert advice from folks with calloused hands. I'm James Nash, and this is the Six Ranch Podcast. The Six Ranch Podcast is brought to you by Sig Sauer. SIG is a leading provider and manufacturer of firearms, electro-optics, ammunition, air guns, and suppressors. For over 250 years, Sig Sauer Inc. has evolved and thrived by blending American ingenuity, German engineering, and Swiss precision. Today, Sig Sauer is synonymous with industry-leading quality and innovation, which has made it the brand of choice amongst the U.S. military, the global defense community, law enforcement, competitive shooters, hunters, and responsible citizens. Sig Sauer is also a premier provider of elite firearms instruction and tactical training at the Sig Sauer Academy located in New Hampshire. For more information about Sig Sauer and its complete line of products, visit sigsauer.com. When is the first time you remember having a run-in with a grizzly bear?
Oh boy. A dangerous one? Should we start with that?
Aren't they all dangerous?
No. A lot of times bears are curious. And a lot of times it's just being cautious and being aware. But growing up in Canada, there's always opportunities with grizzlies. But I think probably the most memorable and one that I probably was the most aware of how insignificant and ill-prepared I was coming to a knife fight with a bear with only a pocket knife and a haze straightener. We were fencing when we were kids. I think we must have only been like 14 or 15, if that. And we were checking pasture on the quad. And by luck that day, up in the North Country, it was just the beginning of August. So all the guys had trailed out to camp. And we had a few of the brood mares in. And we literally were walking down a trail. And for goodness sakes, I was so thankful. There was this old dog, Kokanee. He was a mutt dog, blue heeler, border collie cross. And I remember being like, oh, wow, he decided to come today. That's cool. And I had a hay straightener and a pocket knife, like a buck knife. And we were checking fence. We'd only made it about 30 yards down the fence line. And you get that innate feeling, I'm sure you've had it in the military. There's just a situation that all of a sudden, all of the hairs on the back of your neck and your arms stand up. And growing up in the North Country in the summers, we have a lot of elk. So it's nothing to like hear something crashing through the brush. So we naturally stopped, this other girlfriend and I, And instead of crashing away from us, this noise was crashing towards us. The next thing, it happened so fast. I remember kokanee darting in front of me, a big blur coming. When we paced it out and we kind of calmed ourselves back down years later, we realized that it was probably less than like 15 yards. But a big boar grizzly that we had notably called the Honda bear, had rushed us. My girlfriend at the time, we were 15. I mean, I reacted. I thought I was going to climb up a poplar tree with my buck knife and was trying to go backward. Because I was like, don't run, bear, tree, knife, haze straightener. Like I wasn't going to bonk it on the nose. And my girlfriend just took off just a little bit over the bank. And I remember yelling and shouting, and you're trying to stand your ground, and you're also trying not to proverbially crap yourself, because it was a huge bear. They ended up taking it years later, and it was SCI score. It was right up there.
Really?
Yeah. But as far as memorable, I remember after that point, we stopped just going around with a haze straightener. We definitely took a shotgun or a 45-70 when we went fencing as kids, but it's kind of one of those things that I've been very lucky. I've had confrontations with bears walking to and from, hunting areas. When I've been out with clients, a lot of it can usually, if you're open and you're aware, it can be avoided.
Yeah.
If you like when you're walking through the field, it's like, oh, there's fresh scat. Okay, let's stop and have a second because there's fresh tracks and the water's pooling in. So maybe let's just give this bear time to move off. It's a respect thing.
Yeah.
I don't want problems. They don't want problems.
Yeah. And that tends to be the case. And then every once in a while, they just have a real problem. They wake up with a bad attitude that day, and then you run into them.
Exactly right.
A buddy of mine was fishing the Russian River on the Kenai Peninsula. Of course, this is a brown bear, but he had just left the parking lot. Like he was 100 yards down the trail, and that guy got attacked by the sow, just blew out of the brush and mauled him. And there's two of them there. His buddy like whipped this thing in the face a bunch of times with his fly rod, and that didn't really do much, of course. Took off back to the parking lot, and the bear like tried to follow him inside the vehicle. And what had happened was some people had gone ahead of him, and they're drunk, and they'd split up the sow and cubs, and they're like throwing beer cans at it and stuff. So they're doing everything right. They just strapped their waders on, right? They're in the parking lot. But that bear was already kind of preheated to 475 and was ready to go.
Well, and that's the thing too, is that, where that bear was, or we had that incident where it was very close call, there had been an elk that he'd killed.
Yeah.
So that boar was coming in defending his kill.
Gotcha.
So a lot of times, unfortunately, your interactions where it is a negative experience is where sows and cubs are involved, and there has been separation, or she's got a boar in the area that's super aggressive that she's having to really defend.
Yeah.
Or a lot of times they're young boars that are either, too curious and they don't know a lot of danger, or they're old boars that are just looking for food. I mean, we've had bears come into camp. Literally, the poor buggers have no teeth left, and they're eating the bread out of the friggin' horse panniers because they're just trying to put calories on a bad berry year. So it's, for the most part, wrong place, wrong time sometimes, hey?
Yeah, no, it's totally the case. My favorite bear story to tell actually doesn't even super involve a bear, but I was working on a ranch in Ovando, Montana, when I was in college, and we were calving out all these first calf heifers, and we're having a lot of problems with calving, and lots of breach, doing like a C-section every night. It was just a struggle. And in Ovando, there's a bunch of bears. And actually, just a couple of weeks ago, a lady who was in a tent, basically in town, got dragged out of her tent in the middle of the night and got killed by a bear. But in this case, we had a bunch of really hot electric fence around the ranch, and I'd asked the owner, like, when do you start seeing bears? And he's like, tomorrow. Like, this is the day every year that we start seeing grizzly bears. It's like, oh, awesome. And then that night, brought in this first calf heifer, and she was having a fit. I came back to check on her, and she'd broken out of the pen, and I found some bear tracks. I was like, oh crap. So start looking for this cow, can't find her anywhere, look all night. And first thing in the morning, I see this big muddy slide mark going down to the creek, and then like this partying in the willows. And I was just so sure that bear had killed that cow, dragged her into the brush, and was eating her. So dumb college kid me decided to walk in there to, try and shoot this freaking bear. And I got in there, and same thing. Like, I hear the crashing, I see the brown blur of fur, scooting past me, and then this big crashing noise, and it was a beaver, dude. And I came so close to having a heart attack because of and I was looking at a beaver slide, and I ended up finding the heifer later on, and the bear tracks were just, a bear that was wandering through. But oh my gosh, I came so close to just straight up dying from heart attack by seeing a beaver. Kind of an embarrassing moment.
Hurting yourself a little bit too, I'm sure. Hey, you know what? There's big beavers down in Montana.
So what's the deal with grizzlies in British Columbia now?
So, unfortunately, due to a non-science-based referendum, they have decided to annul all the grizzly bear hunts. And they did it in the past. I'd have to check my dates to be exact, but it was in the early 2000s. Legislation through Guide Outfitter Association, we were able to fight it. We were able to have the season back for a few years. I was able to draw a grizzly tag 2 different times, 3 years apart, and I hunted to the bitter end. I could not will a grizzly bear. I was chasing their tracks. And the last time we had an open season for grizzly on our limited hunting draw for BC residents was back in 2017. Lord knows I put my trial in trying to get one. So maybe I've just come to the realization they don't hunt me, I won't hunt them. We'll call it good, keep an even playing field. But as of right now, in the forecast, there are no grizzly bear hunting in British Columbia. It's not even on the register, which is really sad, to be honest, James, because the hardest part is that now we're seeing more interactions with that younger generation of bears that are getting pushed out because they don't have respect. There's not, there's a lot of legislation around, if you should kill a bear or if you have a confrontation with a bear. And there's so many rights to the bear that basically you either have to be chewed on or that bear has to have had his muzzle around the end of the barrel to kind of be, have the government on your side. So, as diligent stewards of the backcountry, we're trying to mitigate bear interaction, but you and I both know it's like having a bunch of critters running around that they're getting pushed out, they're getting uncompeted. And now we're faced with a problem that it's become a passion piece for the rest of the Western world. The last place in Canada that you actually can hunt a grizzly bear is the Yukon. So obviously they've benefited from it financially. They're also able to kind of manage their bear species where those bigger, older boars is what they're harvesting and what they're hoping to harvest that actually are responsible for killing a lot of the cubs. So it's right now, the Northwest Territories, they haven't had a bear season in decades. And we come to find out that it was said to say that they were a spirit bear, but when you talk to a lot of the First Nations up there, they don't really go and hunt bears. So there's a lot of like miscommunication on kind of the importance of bears, the roles they play, and why we should or should not hunt them without a science-based background on the why you shouldn't hunt them side.
Yeah. And it really does boil down to, if you want more bears, then get people out there killing boars. And if you want less bears, then get people out there killing sows.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's as simple as that. It can get a lot more complicated than that, but those things are true. And they've been found to be true time and time again, whether you're talking about grizzly bears, brown bears, black bears, I don't care, because a boar will kill the cubs to bring the sow back into heat so that he can breed her again, even if they're his cubs.
Yeah. And a lot of people don't know that. A lot of people don't realize that there's like a pheromone or a smell that comes off, but they will just to get back into rut. So that's the hardest and most unfortunate part of this whole thing is that Disney and some of these other cartoonesque things have personified the bear to, yes, they are very cool. I have a lot of respect for them. But at the same time, they're still an animal that once we've started working with and we encroached on their country and we're trying to share it, it's a very delicate dance.
Yeah. And I don't even really buy into the whole, it was their country first. A lot of these animals came into North America at the same time that humans did. Like we shared the Bering Land Bridge together and came across.
Yeah. They lived in the prairie more than they lived in the Rockies. Let's be honest. They were
for sure.
buffalo.
So this whole, like, it was theirs first. I'm just not ready to drink that Kool-Aid. And it inevitably comes from somebody who lives in a city that is like the most destructive thing that you can do to a quality piece of environment is just cover it up in concrete and fill it up with people and vehicles and shopping malls and everything else. Like, we don't need to do that.
Humanize them.
Yeah.
Essentially, it's humanize them.
Yeah. But anyways, what kind of hunts you got coming up this year? You've got kind of you've got a stacked dance card.
I do. It's pretty selfish. I'm not gonna lie. It's been.
I'm so proud of you.
Well, thank you. I'm literally sitting in a pile of all of my stuff. I've unloaded my whole first month's worth of stuff into this living room here, and I'm kind of getting ready for it. But selfishly, I would be in the mountains right now, usually in a regular year, training, getting horses ready for the first hunt, and I'm doing it for myself. So I am going in for my own stone sheep hunt this year with a close girlfriend of mine. And then the rest of the season, if I've got tags for it and it's not an LEH draw, I am going for it. I've got a couple friends lined up that you get to a point where it's almost like a reset, James.
Yeah.
And I started realizing, like, some of the animals that are super important to me that I've really helped a lot of other people enjoy their passions with, it was kind of the right time, the right fit with the way that the border's been right now. Moose are really important to me, and I'd love to harvest a really nice Canadian moose, a Rocky Mountain goat. I've got a tremendous caribou from the territories, and I mean, unless it's something like an absolute snowflake that's going to go walking past and just the right time, right place, and an elk. Something of which I have not hunted for myself either.
I want to help you fix that.
I would love to let you help me fix that. I think that's one thing that in any profession, no matter how much you love it, how much it feels like Christmas morning when you're getting ready, you're doing your preseason prep, you're going through your meals, you're going through your gear, you're oiling saddles, you're fixing things, you're buying last minute trinkets that usually you never end up needing on the mountain, but some of those outdoor stores are really good at marketing. And there's something special about helping everyone else. But when you still truly love what you do and you make the time for yourself to go and do it, it feels that much cooler. I'm not going to lie. I don't know. It's like a rekindled appreciation for everything that I've ever done. And I'm the shooter. I don't know. It's kind of, it hasn't quite sunk in yet. I've never taken a season ever. I've been going to the mountains since 99 when I was a kid. So I'm going to age myself here. I'm 33. So what's that? Quick math. 12, 13 years? 12 years going to the mountain? Or 22 years. Holy crap.
Yeah,
wow.
bit north of that.
Yeah, I was trying to do the whole, play it cool thing. Then I started realizing there's another decade in there. So 22 years I've been going to the mountains.
And working in hunting camps, guiding. Yeah. And what species have you guided for?
I went with a theory if it's brown and it's down in the Northwest.
Or if it's white or kind of gray.
White, gray, brown, blue. Yeah. So Canadian moose, Alaska Yukon moose, mountain goat, stone sheep, Dall sheep. I did guide for grizzly, black bear, mountain caribou. I have killed a few elk for other people. Wolverine, wolf, bison. Who am I forgetting? I'm looking around the room here. There's a few.
All of the things.
All of the things. Not deer. I've never been much for deer, but hoping to remedy that. I don't know.
Well, moose are deer too,
Moose are deer too. They're just big ones.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been a really cool. I came back from New Zealand in 2010 after guiding a few years and getting to guide over there, kind of partaking in the stag hunts for the roar, tar, and chamois. And I decided that if I was going to be an outfitter, I wanted to guide for some of the most prestigious camps and get a plethora of knowledge of what each of those good and, well, I guess noteworthy places had done right and the species that they were successful at harvesting. So that way, when the time was right, I had this knowledge to fall back on.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you've got it now. You've got a tremendous amount of experience. And I think it's really, really important for guides to also hunt. And we don't typically get that opportunity. Same thing with fishing. I don't care what it is that you're guiding, you also have to do the thing, because guiding and hunting are very different things from each other. And one informs the other for sure. But if all you do is guide, you can completely lose track of what the experience is like as a hunter. And then you're no longer able to communicate with your clients very well, because you've lost touch with what they're feeling and what they're experiencing. So I think it makes you better professionally, but people don't usually get into guiding because they just want to get into guiding. They get into guiding because they loved hunting or they loved whitewater, rock climbing, whatever it is, you know? So I think it's great. And it's tough. Like, this is your time to make money. And it involves all kinds of sacrifice to say, all right, this year I'm on the trigger. And man, I think you're going to have a great year. I can't wait to see what you turn up.
Oh, thank you. No, you hit the nail on the head. As a guide and outfitter yourself, you get it. It's, as much as you love it, there are certain times in your life where you need a reset.
Yeah.
And this has been a long time coming. I've got some really good friends that I've hunted with or, been in touch with over the years that we've just decided, this is the year. Recently, I was just sitting there having dinner with good friends of mine, Adam and Frankie Foss, and we realized it was 4 years ago that I went and killed my first sheep as a hunter. Kicked myself out of Less Than One Club with Adam, a whole team from Sitka, and my dad. And the film hasn't been published yet. There's still some back end stuff that we're working on just because of storylines. But when I was sitting there on the floor watching it the other day, it brought back so many emotions of what was happening 4 years ago, where I was, who I am now. And I think that's what a lot of people, they gravitate towards, is the journey. The proverbial hike a mountain and carry everything with you is so metaphoric when you start thinking of your daily life, your job, your career, your family, everything that's going on, all of the influences that you have on a daily basis, and you carry those with you. And I remember at that point 4 years ago, I had some very traumatic things happen leading right up until that hunt. And it almost foreshadowed kind of the next 4 years, which I find myself at now, and kind of the personal growth I've done just as a woman in the outdoor industry, but more importantly for myself, and different ideologies I have, different, almost I'm trying to think of the word without misrepresenting what I'm trying to say, but there are certain truths I believed about myself on what I had to be earlier on in my profession. And one of the really cool and encouraging things that's happening right now in the industry is that you can celebrate being whoever you are, whether it's feminine, you wear mascara, or someone who decides not to wear mascara in the hunting season. For women, it's kind of a big thing, because I remember when I first got started, it was like very much sexual taboo. It's like, you don't look like a girl when you're out in the mountains. And now, you can celebrate. There's women's gear, and just, I don't know, it's been an emotional roller coaster for probably about the last few days since watching that, and kind of doing a lot of digging onto what does it actually mean for me to go on my own sheep hunt for myself again. Probably
means everything. And it's so hard to explain this, even to other hunters, to explain what this means. You almost get to the point where you kind of lay out the framework for it, and then you just look at them and hope that they understand. And a lot of times we do, but
it's like speaking another language. It's like you do the hand signals and you try and like your best lingo, and then you're like, okay, do you understand? And then there's like that awkward pause when you're speaking another language, and they're like, no habla inglés.
Yeah.
But because I think for each of us, it's so different. And I think that's the beauty of it. That's what I've loved as a guide, is that most of the time, well, 99.9% of the time, everyone is there for a reason. And that reason's either very personal or goal-driven or a legacy that they want to fulfill. It's got kind of a neat backstory, and I love stories.
Me too. I think stories are great. And I grew up in this cowboy Western logging, hardworking culture where stories were so important. And that was a big part of how people communicated, and conversations took a long time. Like if you went to the feed store and you ran into somebody, you were anchored in that aisle for 45 minutes, right? And guess what? If you go to the next aisle and run into somebody else, you're there that long too. And that was an acceptable thing. And it was because people had stories to tell. And I loved listening to those stories as a kid. And one of the biggest reasons that I started this podcast was to be able to record some of those stories, because I started seeing these old timers, that I grew up with. And as I'm growing up, they're at the back end of their prime, they're starting to fade out of whatever it was that made them, such hard men and women, and all the incredible things that they'd, seen and done and told stories about. A lot of those people are gone now, and their stories are gone with them. And someday, so will be us, and, we both, we lost our mutual friend, Damian Pagano, recently. And gosh, his story felt like it was untold. It can happen to any of us so quickly. It could be in the next moment. And I think that that's another reason why it's important to make these sacrifices and be like, you know what, this year I'm going stone sheep hunting. And it's cool that you have that opportunity. I can't say that. I can't be like, you know what, this year I'm going stone sheep hunting. It would cost me both kidneys.
And I might have to sell the farm, Mama. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Oh man.
No, I think that's fragility of life. Just to touch on that, and my heart goes out to Damien's family. He had the biggest smile and the warmest presence there at the Sig Hunter events. And I think if anything, God takes his favorites. And if we can just remind ourselves that you don't know one day to another. And that's why we do crazy things like not go hunting for everyone else during the season, or talk to our friends, or make that phone call, or do that trip, because you never know.
And I'm really proud of the hunting community for the way we've come together to support Damien's family. There's been multiple funds set up, one for his kids for college, and, one to help support his family in this time of great transition. And like, I just don't see that in other communities. I just don't. And there's not a lot of us that do this professionally, and we definitely stick together, but we also rarely get to see each other. I mean, I get to see you like once every couple years at a show or something. And
for about 5 minutes. It's like, oh, hey, how's it going? It's like meeting your friends. I think Cody Rich and I talked about that one time. It's like, you were successful, or how did we say it? Select exhibitionists. I think that's a very good term. We're select exhibitionists. We like to go and see our friends, power date everyone, and then we have a hangover for 9 to 12 months until we go and do it for a week or 3, depending on how brave you are.
Gosh, the last time I left Sheep Show, I realized when I stepped out to go to the airport after, I don't know, 5 or 6 days or however long I'd been there, I hadn't been outside that entire time.
I don't doubt it. Actually, I kind of have been there myself. Actually, it counts when you go from the convention center to the bus. That is outside time. That is outside time. But usually you're running because you're trying to catch a bus, or your friends are on a different bus, or you're sleeping, because Lord knows once you get to that Peppermill Hotel, there is no sleeping.
No, definitely not. And time is irrelevant. It does not matter. Like,
no.
Yeah.
They put that air conditioning in there. They have the bright lights, a few like bedazzly things. Gray Thornton gets on the microphone, puts you into a trance. You're done for. You might as well just write your life off.
Yeah, I almost had to, because I got a little carried away on a bid for a Cape Buffalo hunt that I felt like was pretty cheap, but I'm glad somebody else bought it. So thank you to whoever that individual was who saved me from myself.
Saving one from oneself. Yeah, that's a good theme for Sheep Week. You know what? It's going to, just touching on that, when the border opens up and people are driving down, even if they have Sheep Week next week or next year, it's going to be like college town. Like, leave your ovaries, or not your ovaries. Oh my gosh. Leave your liver at home. I don't know. Maybe leave all your genitalia, all your innards too, because everything's going to be hurting. I tell you what, like, I don't know. It's like college. You just, you stand up and you say hi to your friends, and there's going to be 3 years worth of stories that everyone's going to tell.
Yeah. It's going to be wild.
It's going to be wild.
Okay. I'm going on my first moose hunt this year, Alaskan moose. out on the peninsula. Great big bulls out there. I am just beyond myself with excitement. What advice do you have for me?
Oh boy. Shoot straight.
Okay.
Bring rain gear.
Okay.
From what I understand. And the biggest thing is go slow.
Yeah.
Those big old moose, like, I mean, the young bulls, like they will travel. I've never hunted Alaska. I've never hunted the peninsula. I don't know what your resident pressure is going to be like or how many other hunters you're going to run into. But one thing is for sure, when you hit them right in the rut, if they don't have cows, man, they will travel and find them.
Yeah. And
there will be a great opportunity. But you'll never catch a moose. If he's rutting and walking, you either got to get in front of him and try and dissuade him and get your sexy cow call going, and try and lure that big boy over, which, I mean, just try and act a little bit more feminine. Maybe don't twirl your mustache at him.
Mascara.
Mascara, that's right.
That's my time to bring mascara.
It might not overshadow your mustache. You might be well on that.
That's where I was planning on putting it.
Well, so funny story. And not the boys, like my first year up again, I was trail cooking, and I did a couple caribou hunts. And the boys found my mascara, and they were younger. Like all the guys I was working with at the time were super young, so they had peach fuzz. Those little pricks took my mascara and they wanded it in on their facial hair. And I come back into camp. I can't remember if I'd gone hunting with one of the guys that day or what I was doing, but I remember looking at them and there was like, I won't be putting that on my face anymore. Anyways, I mean, if you need to darken in your ginger mustache, go for it. But moose aren't discriminatory. And anyway, so yeah, no. As far as that, sitting and waiting, like that's a lot of things. Moose can be pleasantly curious, but at the same time, if they've got cows up a drainage, I mean, unless you got the world's best cow call and you can get close enough to draw him out from his cows and he's not got one cycling right then and there, that's another way of doing it. But going in stealthy, I mean, like you think of those ears, they're about 12 inches, they're a foot long. And when they swing them forward on those paddles, that's like putting like a huge megaphone to the outside of our ears, right? So any little, stump, if they're in the rut, I've seen guys, we'll beat them with a paddle or we'll have a log that we'll take and we'll beat a buckbrush. But there's you can either be quiet and sneak in, or you can walk like an animal towards them.
Yeah.
So I would be reading your situation, and depending on what stage of the rut you're going in, just kind of playing your best card to your advantage. Early season, they're going to be up high still in the willow runs, especially if the bugs are bad. Like, it's incredible to see where moose will go when they're pushing out that much velvet. I mean, I know what a mosquito's like on my arm. I'm swatting around. I couldn't imagine having this huge, soft, velvety mass above my head that the bugs are just swarming to you like a beacon.
Yeah, no, I feel so bad for the animals in Alaska and Canada. Like in some of those really buggy areas, it would be terrible. It would be terrible.
Oh, I tell you what, I've packed, when I was guiding the territories, I guess I was there for 6 or 7 years. I had carried one of those little mesh bags that you put over top your hat.
Mm-hmm.
I'd never used it in the territories. The bugs can get bad, but they're not terrible. I went back to northwestern BC last year and we got out of the pack rafts and it was about 20 seconds flat. And I was like, yep, nope, nuts to this, put that on. And I lathered my dog. You start going through some of that low moose country, man, where you've got a lot of standing water.
Yeah.
I will never make fun of those bug hats again.
Yeah.
That was my saving grace.
So we had to wear those change in irrigation pipes as kids. And it was full body, and you ran still, because if that netting touched your skin at all, they could go right through it and get you. But really it gave a little bit of offset so their little proboscis couldn't get down into your skin. And no, it was wild, but no, bugs are no fun. I mean, you just grab that irrigation pipe and sprint as fast as you can across the pasture, and then hope that you don't get sucked dry by the time it's all over with.
The beginning of last year, we camped, unfortunately, right beside a beaver pond. There was no more days we could, there was more hours. We decided just to make camp. We're like, oh, we'll deal with it. And I remember doing a fool's errand. Whatever you do, close your zipper when you get out of your tent, wherever you're staying. Yeah. I went back, we set up, we went glassing, I came back, and there was this death cloud of mosquitoes in my tent. And between Dolly and I was trying to smash things around. My dog's wondering if I'm trying to hit her, and I've got clothes whacking everything. I probably fumigated myself. I probably didn't feel right for 2 days. But I learned the hard way. You set your tent up, you close that mesh thing. Otherwise, they're little proboscises. They're going to be tapping you all night long.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No fun.
But another thing's going to be footwear. What time of year are you going?
September? So yeah, it's going to be September. I'm going to guide a week of archery elk here and then go immediately to Anchorage and then fly out to the peninsula and then super cover in the bush from there. But
has it been really dry up there this year? Or because I know everywhere has kind of had a little bit more of a drier season from what I understand.
Well, we're extremely dry here. It's super scary. I don't know what it's like up there. Haven't even really gotten into it yet, but no, it should be interesting. And we're going guided. So I've got, major advantage there. And it's so funny to me. I hear such criticism for people who get guided. Sometimes they're like, oh, you just got guided. And I know as a guide, it's like, I'm not that much of an advantage. And I definitely want to leverage that advantage, take anything that I can get if I'm going to a new place after a new species. And hats off to the dudes that, are hardcore, solo DIY, lightweight backcountry, brohemes. But, like nothing against people that hire guides. I think that's such a crazy thing that we criticize people about.
Well, and you have to think of it this way too. Like a lot of the people that are, anti-guide, if you don't have the time to go in 2 or 3 times to face the fact that you could be unsuccessful 2 or 3 times and you want to go and just do it right and learn, there is no shame in that. And it's just like hunting with a friend. Like if I come down there, you would be my guide, but you also have more knowledge of that area and your species. So it's like paying a friend to go hunting. Essentially, that's what I think of guiding. It's like, you're sharing knowledge and you're sharing in the hunt. I'm not a dictator when I'm a guide. And I think that's where a lot of people, I don't know, do you think it's like in that situation, people think that just because you're going on a guide, it's not your hunt anymore? Or do you think it comes from a different kind of mentality?
I think it just comes from people who haven't done it, who haven't been guided before, because they don't understand and they think that since somebody's hired a guide that the outcome is a given, that it's now 100% chance and that they're just buying their way into this opportunity. And, that's not it. You and I both know that that's not it.
I think something too, it's funny, people are like, oh, sheep look stupid. I could go up there and kill sheep for myself. And it's like, okay, well, we'll give you a spot and scope. We'll send you on your way. And when you've got a band of rams that are moving and you're in the kill zone and you got to make a decision and you got to be able to age them. Yeah, it's super easy to sit back and watch a Netflix show or a YouTube channel where they've zoomed in and micro-focused on the actual horn of a moving animal and you got a narrative with a guide. But until you're the guide and you're making that call, and I think that's where maybe some of those people that are all taught become very humble.
Yeah.
As soon as you put them in that situation.
I want to talk about humility. I'm sure this has happened to you because you've been guiding long enough, but I've had to guide a bunch of people, especially in fishing, but also in hunting, who are better than I am. And they've got, twice as many years of experience hunting or fishing, and, fishermen who've been all over the world and straight up, they're a better angler than I am. And now I'm in a position where I have to impart something to improve their experience. And for me, it's always been like, okay, well, you're a better fisherman, but I know this river better than you ever will. And I'm going to help you with that. Like, what is it that I can still bring to it? And with hunting, it's a wonderful experience a lot of times, because now it's so much more of a partnership. Like we're in it together. Like we're working as a team to get this done. And then with a more novice hunter, you have to do a lot more, and they're learning hopefully as you go. And that's a great experience. But how have you handled that in the past? If you've come across somebody who has more experience than you do as a hunter?
I think like the first 5 hours that you hang out with someone, or whether it's trailed or whatever, you can kind of read people. You have to, as a guide, you have to be able to read people. You have to know, pardon my language, their bullshit-o-meter of dead-eye dicks that can hike and camp and all this other stuff, but yet they really only have one hike in them. And it's not that mentally they've got hikes for every day.
Right.
But when it comes to experienced hunters that have hunted all over the world, whether they've taken, 3 or 4 slams or whatever, there's still kind of an unwritten vibe that they're trusting you to take them into the right area. They can make the hunt count, but they also, in their, especially if it's an area where they've hunted before and they're coming back to you, it's very much working as a team. And I've learned that actions speak louder than words. And there's always an opportunity to be humble and quiet. And if someone's very domineering and forthright, almost opinionated to a point, a lot of times it's like, okay, well, if you feel we can do it that way, perfect, let's try. And then if it doesn't work, let's try it my way. But when it comes down to it, the people who are largely successful aren't largely successful because they're jerks, if that makes any sense. They're humble. Yeah. A hunter is humble. A hunter knows how to read the animals. I found that most of the people that are super accomplished also come with their own humility, because they know as well as I do, you can be everywhere that the sheep are supposed to be, and they're not there, and so much of it is just working as a team with communication. And some people want you to hang back 20 yards, some want you to be right there on the stalk with them. And that's, I think I hang back more with like archery clients, for example, that I have seen them operate their gear and I trust them, but I can still read the scene, because ultimately I'm responsible for how that plays out.
Yep.
So
I had a guy on an elk hunt years ago that wanted to follow me from like 100 yards back. And I don't know where he got that from, but I kept trying to like get him to come up there with me, and I would wait for him. And it was a really strange experience for me. And that's just where he was comfortable. He wanted to be 100 yards behind me, barely visible. And
maybe he's really bad gas.
It could be. Yeah. Maybe wasn't feeling right. I'm not that fast. So it wasn't a speed issue. I guarantee that. Wasn't walking away from this dude.
See, and the thing I found, like, I'm sure it's the same with you, you have to travel this, whether you're super fast or super speedy, you have to travel with your client, because if you're too far ahead of them, I've had animals that just appear.
Yeah.
And if your client isn't right there and you're not able to calm yourself down and get them set up, Anna Voracek and I have had tremendous luck. We shot her caribou at less than 3 yards.
Wow.
I was right over her shoulder. And when she drew her bow, I fell back into the moss because we were looking at his eyelashes and she had nowhere to draw. And I saw it, read it, fell back. So, and she's an accomplished hunter. Like, she's notably one of the most accomplished female bow hunters in the world. And I think a lot of how hunting with her has taught me communication as a team. She would trust me on the species that I've guided with, and I would trust her knowing her equipment. And I think a lot of those, you can agree with it. A lot of those super successful hunters that do it for the love of it and because it's something that they just are passionate about, they also know that it's camaraderie in the truest form.
Yep.
You have to be able to communicate with your hunting partner.
Yeah. And you hit on something that I really firmly agree with. If you have one responsibility as a client, it's that you know your equipment inside and out and are proficient with it. Like, that's one thing that I cannot do for you is teach you your equipment. And I'll do my best if you show up with a brand new bow or brand new anything, and yeah, we'll work on it. But now really isn't the time for that.
Yeah, that was 6 months ago.
Yeah. I don't know how many hunters I've had show up to archery camp, and I'll ask them how far they feel comfortable shooting. And they'll be like, 60 yards. Like, okay, well, let's step out to 60 and here's your one arrow and there's a elk target. Let's see what happens. And, what happens is we find out that maybe we didn't even sight in our 60-yard pin. It's still on the factory setting. So if I look at the pins and they're all gapped the same distance apart, I know that you haven't touched those. So that arrow breaks, and then we go back to 20 and we start over and we figure out where our new limit is.
Mm-hmm. That's one piece of advice that I guess it'd be 10 years ago now, 2012. Cameron Haynes came out, and I was lucky enough to guide him on his archery bison hunt. And I took a lot of the archery clients for Sickany River, and it was owned by Mike and Dixie Hammond at the time. Mike thought I was crazy. I loved it because you got to get in so close and personal with these huge freaking angry bovine that were rutting. But Cameron took me aside and he said, Rachel, you always want to have a hunter that's not afraid to shoot in front of you. all guys will stand out there and say what they're good to, but it's the guy that goes out quiet that is always practicing. That's what he's like. I do that at every camp. I'm not doing it to show off. I do it because that's my job. I shoot.
Yep.
And I want to shoot well. I want to shoot well by the animal. And it just, that's 10 years ago, earlier on in his career, but it's like, as an archery hunter and a proficient archery hunter, it really stuck with me. So like you said, if I have someone who shows up, I got into archery originally to understand it. Now I enjoy it for myself. Haven't really had a lot of time to do it, but I can understand the fundamentals that can help them get into a better shot. But they have to be able to recognize when and where to take a shot.
Yeah. Yeah. And when to draw, when to move forward, hide in front of a tree, not behind a tree, stuff like that. That's, for people who have ever taken one of my seminars, they'll hear me say that like 15 times because I've seen that one mistake blow up more hunts for elk than just about anything else, is that people won't trust their camouflage and they'll post up behind a tree and then they don't have anywhere that they can shoot. It's like, just go in front of it and sit still and wait. And then you can shoot him. So hide in front of a tree, trust your camouflage. That's why we buy the good stuff.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly right. How many out of all of your elk hunters, here's a question for you, the ones that actually follow through, what's the percentage that you get guys that are there, prepared, ready to go? You look at them and there's a feeling, you're like, yes, this guy's ready or this gal's ready. Do you find it's like taking more of a cult hit now, or?
Well, my hunters are all repeat clients now that I've hunted with a lot. So it's rare for me to get somebody new. And at this point, like we know each other and I know their capabilities and I have a good expectation of what they're going to roll into camp with. Some of them, some of these guys will have killed more elk in their lives with archery equipment than I ever will. And, they're really experienced, really proficient hunters. And then some of them, they're mostly whitetail guys or they're mostly turkey guys. And, we can use that as a baseline and say, okay, this is similar in these ways and it's different in these ways. And these are the skills that you can take from the thing that you're good at, but I need you to add these skills over here. And that's what we're going to be developing over the next week. Mm-hmm. And, I really enjoy improvement. I enjoy progress. Not everybody does. A lot of people are comfortable with where they are, and I don't want to criticize that either. So if that's where they're at, then I want to set them up for a situation where they're going to, see success within their comfort zone.
Mm-hmm. Because you have to visualize it. Like you have to visualize success.
Yeah.
And I feel like, I've had some clients, some of them have been archery, but it, when you're getting into the final under, 700-800 yards and you're in an open basin, like you have to visualize success. What does successful look like in this basin? Do we need the sheep to do this? What do we need to do? Like it's like playing an elaborate game of chess or cat and mouse. And that's the fun part to me. Yep. I love challenge. I love that side of it.
Yeah.
And you have to have, like, as a hunter and a good hunter, you have to have that desire to not just want to walk out and just fling an arrow. You know what I mean?
Well, and visualization is so important because it's like practice. But the mistake that I see people make with visualization is that they fantasize.
Also true.
Right?
Also true. Yeah.
And those are different things. Like dreaming and fantasizing, that was for a year ago. Now we need to visualize as accurately and as realistically as possible what this outcome might be like.
That's very good. I mean, I'd love to go dancing and skipping across and just like Superman and like be frolicking through the fields and have it look really cool and have like a kapow sign, but
like
that doesn't happen.
Last of the Mohicans.
Yo, shoot, yeah. Like, come on, Last of the Mohicans. I still haven't mastered that run where he's got like his hair flowing. I look like I had the horses run away last year when I was working for backcountry. And it sounds stupid, but like totally off topic. But I had a cookie wrapper, and Connor Gavitt was filming at the time, and he had been like giving the horses dad's cookies, and he'd been like crinkling the wrapper, and it was kind of like a running joke. And these buggers took off on me the wrong way, away from where we were camped. And it was a narrow, like one pack horse wide with like little turnouts. Anyway, I had to like Daniel Day, like Mohican, like run as my hair was flying, tripping over rocks, trying not to get sidekicked by some of these mountain horses that see me as an apparition in the dark. And I remember like just thinking of like cookie wrapper. I'm like, this is not what they would do back in the day, but I'm like crinkling this cookie wrapper, and thankfully the lead horse stopped. And I don't know if I looked like estranged or whatever, but I chased them back and I ran the whole way back. But anyway, it just reminded me because I was like running through the trees and I was like, oh, I wonder if I look as epic as I feel, because I probably look like a doofus right now. Anyway.
I was guiding some backcountry like horseback stuff when I was first starting out as a kid, and this chick fell off of her horse, and the horse, of course, was barn sour as hell. It was a dude horse, and it was heading back for town, and I took off running after this horse, and I had big dumb spurs on, like a good dude guide ought to have as a 14-year-old
look
kid.
the part. You gotta look the part. If your rowels aren't as big as your boots are, then you ain't doing nothing.
That's right. If you don't sound like a Macarena every time you take a step, how do you expect to get a tip, Mm-hmm. And anyway, so I take off running as fast as I can go, and finally catch up with this horse, and I'm feeling pretty good about myself. Get the horse back and go to sit on my horse. And I was like, man, my saddle feels kind of weird. And those big rowels had completely raked all the denim off my ass. So I just had my butt hanging out. Oh, it's so embarrassing. But I hadn't noticed when I was, terrified for my life and job chasing this stupid dude horse Appaloosa down a trail.
That's right. They paid for a show and they got one. But yeah, no, it's funny little things like that. I think that's in the backcountry, if you can't laugh at yourself half the time. At the time it was serious. I was like freaking out that I was going to lose the horses, and I was like, oh man. Anyway, I don't know. Those are the things that like make this lifestyle. I remember when I was a kid, like burning pancakes over the open fire. That's before there was like mountain house, really.
Right.
Like mountain house around. I'm not that old, but we certainly didn't get it for days that we went spike camping.
Yeah.
And my God, did I go through the pancake mix. Whew. And the firewood. I learned a lot about that. But those are all character building things, right?
What advice do you have for any gals out there that want to get into hunting or guiding?
When it comes to hunting, I would just surround yourself with people that are nurturing. It doesn't matter who it is. I know a lot of couples that can't hunt together. I know a lot of couples that can hunt together. But I think finding someone as a mentor that isn't going to belittle you or make you feel silly for asking questions, because there's no such thing as a stupid question. And then basically building on your experience, I would figure out what species you want to figure out first, and then just kind of start adding to your resume as you learn to kind of not master, because I think we're always getting humbled in the field. Just because you think you know a thing or two, you'll find out real quick that there's a whole lot more to find out. But it's funny, like I started guiding really before I ever hunted for myself, because I just wanted to go hunting.
Yeah.
And I was very thankful. John DeVries, he'd raised a couple daughters up in the Yukon. So I was a natural fit to go with him, and he just started hanging back and letting me lead the stocks. And I think, for any young guy, it doesn't matter whether you're male or female, I've been around enough to know that everyone has their issues. There's always going to be clients that look at you and go, well, you were born in the last millennia. So,
yeah.
What do you know that I don't? But actions speak louder than words. Keep your head down, work hard. And when you can put animals in front of people, or try your best to put animals in front of people, and remembering, I think the biggest thing is to slow down.
Yeah.
Not a race. It's the experience, especially when you're guiding.
I agree. Do you remember the guy that won Outfitter of the Year at Sheep Show the last, I guess it was 2 or 3 years ago, but he'd been, I think we may have even been sitting together when he won that.
Thompson?
That may be right.
Yeah.
I asked him that night what advice he had. I'm willing to learn from anybody. And this guy had just won a lifetime achievement award for outfitting. I think he'd been guiding for 40 or 50 years, something crazy like that. Mm-hmm. He said, keep your clients warm and fed.
Yep.
It's like, those are the things that you can control. So I really took that to heart as an outfitter, and I focused more on food quality and comfort. And then, you know, the animals are a wild card. They're wild animals. Like
That's why it's hunting, not shooting.
exactly. I don't know what they're going to do. I do my very best to help that client achieve success the way they define it, not the way I define it. But man, the things that I can control, I need to be really good at.
Yes, and I would agree wholeheartedly with that. From an early age, I remember Uncle Darwin sitting me at the office at Scoop Lake and just saying, you know, watch John.
Yeah.
John is really good with customer service. At the end of the day, this is a customer service job.
Yeah.
You're taking them on an experience that they can't find in the city dwelling in concrete anymore. He said, that's what we're giving people. We can control that. We can't control where the sheep are. We can't control where the moose are. Those are our wild cards. And I took that to heart at an early age. And that's one thing. Harold Grindy, he won Guide Out for the Year, almost 10, 15 years ago or something. I had the pleasure of working for him. And to me, I've worked for a lot of great outfits. One thing I really appreciated, especially being on a horse crew, was you had good horses. You had enough diversity of the horses that most everyone could pack and ride, or you had hands that were good enough to help work with you on the trail on that. You had good food and lots of it because you work hard when you're in the mountains, and you had good people that wanted to be there. Everything else, you know, you had good game and you hunted hard for it. But that's one thing that I cringe every time I ask someone about a hunting experience, and they're like, oh, you know, the hunting was okay, but the food was crap, or man, we were starving. And it's like, oof, from a customer service standpoint, those are things that you could have controlled. Gear you can control. There's so many good gear companies out there. It doesn't matter if you wear Sitka or Kuiu or, you know, use a Mystery Ranch or Kafari or Exxon, whatever. As long as your gear works for you and you've got an opportunity to be set up for success, whatever success looks like, but you can offer an experience that these people are paying for, because at the end of the day, if they don't punch a tag, they're going to remember if they had a good time and if they made new friends and if they want to come back. Repeat clients to me are the biggest thing in this industry. That means that you did a job good enough that not only are they coming back, but they're probably going to recommend you and they're going to bring other people.
Yep. And, you know, I was just helping a guy who's just getting started in fishing, and he was talking about, you know, whether he should be focusing on new clients, repeat clients. I said, definitely repeat clients. And you want so many repeat clients that when you get the clients that you don't particularly like, that you have enough repeat clients that you can be like, no, calendar's full, son. Sorry.
I don't know if you're supposed to say that out loud.
I mean, it's the truth. Like most people are awesome. Like my clients are fantastic. I love these guys so much, and gals. Like they are friends. They're in my phone. We text each other and like they're friends. Yeah. Some of them are in a different part of my phone.
God, I'm just like looking through on my phone and like, does he have me in a subfolder? No, okay, we're good. So, probably don't send those memos out in that group email where it's like undisclosed recipients. Don't have a group title on that. The hell knows and the oh frick yes.
Yeah.
No, I would agree on that wholeheartedly. That's when you know you're doing something right.
Yeah. Well, Rachel, I wish you the very best of luck in this hunting season. I can't wait. I hope to get some in-reach text from you at some point that tell me that you've just gotten your stone sheep. That would make me very happy.
That would make me very happy to make you very happy. No, thank you. I appreciate it. It means a lot, and good luck on yours.
Thank you.
And holy smokes, here we go. Look out 2021.
All right. Well, be safe. Last thing. What can we do to help Canada? Because you guys have been on hard times as hunters during this whatever. I don't even want to give it a name. Hard times in Canada, but looking like you're going to reopen for vaccinated folks in August. What can we do? How can we help?
August 9th. It looks like this is I would love to say boycott the vaccine, because that's where I stand right now, because I don't think there's enough information. But this is purely a personal thing. If you believe in the vaccination and you can and want to go on a hunt, there are outfits that are willing, ready, and able to take you. and that are going to be booking up fast. And I think that opening up the border for travel, as far as I understand, we're opening, but you guys are not.
Okay.
Um,
Crazy.
support your tourism. Canada is an estranged amount of our income comes from tourism. Our neighbors to the south, whether it's trade, ecotourism, or hunting, we rely on everyone coming up. So if anything, we've learned this past year that we really like our big brother to the south. So
Yeah,
we'd love to see you guys with smiling faces up here coming on our trips and supporting our economy.
well, we want to support our socialist siblings to the north as much as we can.
No, that's incredible. I tell you what, cut the cards. Here we go.
All right.
Let me tell you, we're going to be moving ourselves south or inviting y'all up if Trudeau gets back in, because there ain't no one west of Montreal that likes him. That's
All
my
right.
political statement for the day. Anyways.
Okay, Rachel. Well, we're going to link everything for people to follow you in this, and I encourage people to do so. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time, my friend. Good luck to you. Be safe.
Okay, bye.
I live in an old cabin with bad to non-existent insulation and wood heat. That cabin can see snow every month of the year and needs a good amount of firewood stacked in the woodshed to carry through the colder months. This spring, as my woodpile turned to smoke and ash, I noticed something metal pushing out of the decades of sawdust and bark. I kicked at it and unearthed a Stanley thermos. The cup was missing, and it showed more worn stainless steel than green. There were dents in the metal, and the handle looked like a puppy had chewed on it, but it still hadn't leaked the old coffee I could feel slosh inside. It took me back to memories of cutting firewood with my dad, waking up early for an elk hunt, or going out to the canyons to gather cattle. A Stanley thermos has the durability to survive whatever hard work you throw at it. You may find it carries memories as well as coffee. Learn more about their new and classic line of products at stanley1913.com or at your local sporting goods store. And catch you next week. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share the show with a friend. You can also rate the podcast and leave a review. Your support allows me to keep doing what I love, which is meeting incredible folks and sharing their stories with you. For more content and photos, follow the show on Instagram at Six Ranch Podcast or me at Six Ranch Outfitters. This episode was produced by Emily Brannigan, with original music written and performed by Justin Hay. Art for the Six Ranch Podcast was created by John Chatelain and digitized by Celia Christofferson. Tune in every Monday for a brand new episode of the Six Ranch Podcast. I'll catch you next week.